Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. What a way to start. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you for being here. I hope this finds you healthy and secure. Silliness. It's the 23rd of December, 2021. You might be watching this today. You might be watching this in 2025. I don't know. I don't know what YouTube will be by then. I hope that this channel remains on YouTube well past my expiry date. Not that I'm thinking that a whole lot about that right now, but we are continuing with the MulaMadhyamakaKarika. Nagarjuna's middle way, although so far the middle way sounds pretty one way. And just a reminder, as I was speaking on this yesterday, the argumentation, the presentation, the karika, as it were, of Nagarjuna on the idea of emptiness we have to remind ourselves that this not only is this teaching, thousands of years old, to an audience that was having a very difficult time understanding how to unattach. Not that we don't today, but we have more tools today, more understanding of the nuances of our mind and how we create our, or at least to the degree that we are consciously involved in the directions our lives move in. We have a lot of predispositions, right? And the terms for that in Buddhism are tendencies and conditions. Those predispositions are actually constructed predispositions. And so you start taking this apart intellectually ad nauseum until you get to what is this formation from energy that has this particular set of characteristics, right? Tendencies and conditions. And so what we find in our practice of Buddhism is that, again, our goal in our practice of Lotus Sutra Buddhism is simply to chant Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, to fuse through the use of our mandala into our Gohanzen to establish our Buddha mind. Why are there so many steps? Ask yourself. Because there's well, in Samsara, everything's a duality, right? So, in teaching Buddhism, we are in Samsara using words which are a stumbling block to innate understanding, because words just describe, they're just like fingers pointing, but the mind understands things whole. It understands things beyond, without, within, well beyond the minutia of words, right? I apologize, but this is one of those mornings. I'm so sorry. So we, as Buddhists, we have to be, or we have to accept, we're in samsara, so we have to be of two minds. And I think, I haven't talked about this a whole lot, but as confusing as it might seem, I think that it's really, really helpful to our understanding of a teaching like the Madhyamakakarika. What Nagarjuna is disassembling here is the samsaric human mind, the mind we all share, the mind that we all are constructed of, in, about, the mind of distinctions, the minds of this, not that, exist, doesn't exist, that whole, all this argumentation about there is no self, there is no self, the issue of self is a non-issue, it's a distraction, it's a this, it's a that, blah, 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 blah. And it can get confusing because it can seem as though we're trying to annihilate something. We're trying to get rid of self. That's not exactly right. And if you get stuck in those words, that rhetoric, you can become extremely frustrated. And you can meditate trying to annihilate your mind. And you can meditate trying to annihilate this life. And I have to meditate and have no thoughts. I have to end thought. All of that is absolutely wrong. And Nichiren railed and railed about this. The Chan, the Zen people. And then the other ones who said, well, we need to leave this life and go to this other pure land. Amida, 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 Amida. No, no, no. You're missing it. And it's this subtlety, but it's about as subtle as Pink Floyd's The Wall. You know, there's this division of understanding of the two minds. And so what do I mean by all of that? The Dharma is the experience. How do we communicate, share, become intimate with the experience with one another? Signs, hugs, pictures. We end up using words. Words, language is something we humans developed to create fingers that point to ideas, thoughts, words, things. But the things is one thing too many. It gets in the way. So the two minds are simply this. There is a samsaric mind of distinctions, which is how we form identity, self, other. All our dualities are a function of samsaric reality. That's one mind. The other mind is the unattached, clear, joyful, compassionate, amazed mind, not bound by samsara, within samsara, but unbound by it. That is a separate mind, as we discuss it with these words. So you might say we are of two minds. Okay? Can we accept that? There are two minds. But those two minds, and here's the rub, those two minds are the same mind. This is the big mic drop moment of the Tathagata chapter, the lifespan of the Tathagata chapter in the Lotus Sutra. So let's revisit that for a moment in light of what Nagarjuna is telling us. In essence, what Nagarjuna is doing, and other scholars, Shakyamuni himself, wants us mentally to dissect the samsaric mind to the point where it ceases to control our experience. Because in samsara, it controls everything. The mind of distinctions, identification, self, I, other, this, that, so blah, 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 blah. It's omnipresent. It is this life. But thank you. I don't know if we have a bird joining us. Chant, little bird. It's lovely. We also have, within that very same mind, the ability to go, we have that. We have that Buddha mind. That mind that observes the distinctions, but isn't bound by them, isn't controlled by them, isn't affected by them. They're still there, but they don't control our experience of this magnificent process. In fact, we don't even see the process until we use our Buddha mind. Because the process, well, that's samsara. So, once again, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death. When that process of samsara, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, completes, there's nothing to observe. So only here, in the midst of samsara, can we become I'm looking for other adjectives, unbound by the process. Why? Why be unbound by the process? The process is going to happen. The process going to process, right? We're not trying to escape it. We're trying to escape its clutches. We're not trying to annihilate it. We're trying to understand it so well that it ceases to have so much power over our moment-to-moment birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death. So that we can embrace it with joy, amazement, and compassion. Compassion for what? For those who can't express that unbound mind of Buddha, the mind of Buddha. It's not like there's a chunk of your brain that says Buddha. It's your mind, not your organ. Your mind of perception, of understanding, of deception. All 9 consciousness. The 8 that are very samsarically bound. The 9th, which is always there, appreciating the process. So I think it's important to understand this, that we can talk about being of 2 minds, but it's really one mind. It's just that there are varied consciousnesses within it. Conventional Western wisdom talks about a conscious and an unconscious, and maybe a third somewhere in there. But as Buddhists, again, Buddhism is about the mind. Shakyamuni deciphered this mind to 9 consciousnesses. And you've heard me talk years ago when I was investigating the nature of the 3,000 realms, and the origins of life itself, the formations of the samsaric mind, thingness, thingifying. How does that come about? How does this whole process come to be, right? And I talked about the, even string theory, M theory, the brains, B-R-A-N-E-S, not B-R-I, B-R-A-I, not that one. Membranes, in other words, of these vibrating strings with 9, 10 dimensions, and how those dimensions you could think of as consciousnesses. I mean, really, really my Nagarjuna stage, dissecting the meaning, the construction. You can go watch those videos. I don't spend a lot of time watching my videos. Seems really kind of wasted time to me. I can always learn something, of course, but more often than not, I become a critic of, I shouldn't have said it like that, or whatever. I rely on the spontaneity of these discussions because I want to be straightforward. I want to be in the moment, genuine. And if I change over time, guess what? I'm a man. Not that women are any different, but I'm a human. We continually experience this samsaric mind of discovery, if you will, although you could argue that discovery is just more delineation, more this is this and that is that. It's samsara. But I choose to see it as an interesting, fascinating, somewhat enjoyable process. Not that I condone certain things, but I can identify things that I need to eschew and things that I need to dive more into by being more of an observer. Wait a minute, don't you do that? Don't you, time to time, take stock of your own actions? Don't you, time to time, question your own actions in an effort to maybe do better or not do harm? We have that facility. We know we're of multiple minds, don't we? It's not that mysterious. And you'll say, well, that's because sometimes we take stock or we have a different perspective. Certainly, if you ever had an offspring, mothers, fathers, or a sibling. You have to reconsider everything as soon as you're into these intimate relationships, because you're confronted with aspects of yourself that you've simply not thought about before. But when you're dealing in a relationship, there are many aspects of yourself that you suddenly discover anew. Question, like, appreciated for, disgusted by, right? It's like being in Samsara, though it's a mind of distinctions and a mind of identification, we're constantly confronted societally with what that means. And so looking at the process of humanness, Siddhartha Gautama witnessed a lot of anxiety, stress, pain, worry, suffering. And being a prince, being raised in wealth with hardly a care, he was stunned that the world around him wasn't like his world. And his thought was, well, my world isn't perfect either. I'm frustrated as heck, even in my privilege. What is that? What is that that makes us miserable? There's got to be a way, because look at this beautiful sky, the birds singing. Look at the amazing environment. Look at what we can do. I can climb a tree. Not so much anymore. But I remember what it's like. Remember, the mind, the body exists solely for knowledge and remembrance. See, it's not that mystical. It's just a constant reminder, Buddhism is, that when your mind drifts and adheres to things that we condition in our minds to be permanent. I have this. It's always slipping away. Everything we think with our minds, we own, we have, we possess, whether it's control or a sofa, we're always in danger of losing it. This is the stress, the fundamental stress and anxiety of life, right? As soon as we gain something, we're then somehow stressed and anxious about losing it. And so these discussions and Shakyamuni's stories are all about the absolute fact that all of it is temporary, it's impermanent. Why are you so attached to it? But is that really the question? The question is, how does your samsaric mind work, and how can you avoid that trap? It's a trap only because we should be blown away and amazed by just living. And that's what set him about finding a method to live life free of that possessing, having. You can have it, you can possess it, but it's just a temporary joy. The problem is we attach. It doesn't attach. We attach. Ownership, possession to it. We're doing that. How do we stop doing that? Because if we stop doing that, then we're free to just completely participate in samsara with utter joy. Because we know things come and go. So if something is not possessed, but only experienced, then when it dissolves, disappears, moves on, that too is appreciated. Oh, look, I don't have that anymore. That doesn't even, those words have no purpose, no reason, because you just experience this beautiful person, this television set, this video, this earth, this universe, the plane going overhead. I don't have to own it or possess it to enjoy its presence. And when it goes, I'm not anxious about it. I don't stress about it, because that's what planes do. They come and they go. Do you see how simple it is? So while we're in the midst of all this deep complexity and thinking, I just want to remind you, what is the goal here? Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. All right? So let's jump into the mire for a little while longer. And let us see through these words the monkeys at work and how to quiet them, demonstrate that all of this fervor that they make is just for our entertainment, not for our obsession. Okay? Stanza number 4, or verse number 4. If you say the act of going is in the path presently being traversed, it would follow that the path being traversed is without the act of going, since for you the path presently being traversed is being traversed. I love these little word salads. So, that's an interesting thought to take apart, isn't it? If you're going to the store, if you're in the act of going to the store, does it serve any purpose to say that what I'm doing is going to the store, or that I need to go to the store? You're going to the store. Why do you need to go to the store if that is exactly what you're doing? There's a redundancy there that doesn't belong. Does that make sense? Are you constantly charging yourself with what you're doing? Since the locus of present going and the going are distinct, verse 3, the locus itself must be devoid of any activity of going. So if you say you're going to the store, as you're going to the store, saying you're going to the store really has no substance. It's just a cloud on top of what's already happening. Let's see why he says that. If the act of going is in the path presently being traversed, then two acts of going would follow. That by which the path presently being traversed is said to be such, and moreover, that which supposedly exists is the act of going. If two acts of going are supplied, then it would follow that there are two goers. For it does not hold that there is an act of going without a goer. So every time you say you're going to the store, are you creating a new self that's going to the store? Since this is an absurd consequence, the opponent's hypothesis of verse 2 that led to it must be rejected. Do you see the argumentation here? Note that there is no reason to stop at 2 goers. The logic of the argument leads to an infinite regress of goers. If it does not hold that there is an act of going without a goer, how will there be a goer when the act of going does not exist? Do you disappear? If you're not going to the store, does your very existence evaporate because you can only exist when you make the statement, I am going to the store? If you don't go to the store, do you stop to exist because you've instantiated a self with the going? And by not going, that self dies. So those of you who are talking about the many worlds exploration of quantum, or Schrödinger's particular view, and we can wrestle with Copenhagen and quantum. Quantum is very much like Nagarjuna. Chew on that. Just as a goer does not go, neither does a non-goer go. And what third person is there, apart from the goer and the non-goer, who goes? The argument so far has concerned what the locus of going might be, the path traversed, not traversed, and so on. Attention now shifts to the question whether there is anything that might be the agent of the act of moving. How, first of all, will it hold that a goer goes when it does not hold that there is a goer in the absence of the act of going? If you hold the thesis that a goer goes, it would follow that the goer is without the act of going, for which you wish to ascribe the act of going to the goer. If a goer does indeed go, then it would follow that there are 2 acts of going, that by which the goer is said to be a goer, and that by which the goer actually goes. Going is not begun in the path traversed. Going is not begun in the path not yet traversed. And going is not begun in the path presently being traversed. Then where is going begun? Do you see where we're headed here? Before the act of going begins, there is neither a path presently being traversed, nor one already traversed, where the act of going could begin. And how could the act of going begin in the path not yet traversed? How can the path already traversed, presently being traversed, or not yet traversed, be imagined when the beginning of the act of going is not in any way to be found? It is not first a goer who stops, nor indeed is it a non-goer who stops. And who could be the third person distinct from goer and non-goer who stops? How will it ever hold, in the first place, that a goer stops when it never holds that there is a goer without an act of going? The goer is not said to stop when on the path presently being traversed, the already traversed, or the not yet traversed. The same analysis that applies to the case of the act of going also applies to the commencing and ceasing of the act of going. Nagarjuna points out the same reasoning that refuted the act of going also refutes the beginning and the end of going. It is not right to say that the goer is identical with the act of going, nor again is it right to say that the goer and act of going are distinct. If act of going and the goer are identical, then it would also follow that agent and action are one. If, on the other hand, the goer were thought to be distinct from the act of going, then there would be an act of going without a goer, and a goer without an act of going. If two things are not established as either identical or distinct, then how will they be established at all? A goer does not obtain that going through which is called a goer, since the goer does not exist before the going. Indeed, someone goes somewhere. A goer does not obtain going by means of something other than that going through which it is called a goer, since it cannot be held that there are two goings when just one goes. One who is a real goer does not perform a going of any of the three kinds. Neither does one who is not a real goer perform a going of any of the three kinds. One who is both real and unreal goer does not perform a going of any of the three kinds. Thus there is no going, no goer, and no destination. So then we're going to start a new chapter. So what's all that about? Boy, you can get lost in those words, right? Again, we come back to the idea of the line and points. He's an amazing argumenter. So we live this life. And life, we could say, is a form of going. Do we not say we go through life? So what is it that we actually go through? Is life something to go through? Is life something that is lived? Or is life simply the memory of having gone through it? That's the nature of this argument. Ultimately, he points out the ridiculousness of all this mind of distinctions. Come back to that samsaric mind. He's disassembling it. He's demonstrating how ridiculous an obsession it is. Your observation of life is a constantly subjective experience that has no going, been, gone, about to go. All of those distinctions require that you stop. Do you ever stop? Is there such a thing as stop? Don't forget, you're moving at an incredible rate of speed right now. This thing of time, space is our container. It's not just this body or this school, this building, this city, this town, this state, this country, this planet spinning, flying around the sun, which is flying on an arm of the Milky Way, which is flying at how many parsecs? It's just speed. Ugh. You want to obliterate your ability to think, start investigating that. That's not the point. The point is our obsession with that. It's a total distraction from being here, present. Not here geography, here mentally. experiencing, which I guess you would say would require an experiencer. And there's that duality again. Is the experiencer the samsaric identification of me? Or is there a second mind of experiencer that me is just an incidental samsaric vehicle for perceiving? Yes. We can partake of this samsaric experience without being bound by it when we chant Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, enliven our Buddha sight, experience, mind, through our wonderful vehicle of Gohonzon, our samsaric mind, non-obsessed, non-bound, unaffected, liberates our ninth consciousness to experience Dharma. Watch the Dharma. Be the Dharma. Dharma is an understanding. Dharma is an experience within that understanding that all of this is good. Unattached, unembroiled. When you cook a stew and you bring it to a simmer, do you then bathe in it? No, it's very easy. You're silly, Sylvain. Shut up. What does that mean? It means you know what the stew is made of. You know how it simmers. But you don't have to be in the stew to enjoy and participate in the wonder of the stew or stewness. The stew is samsara, it's life. Analogies are rough. But I think maybe we're starting to define better how there's not an annihilation here, nor is there anything eternal. There's just this amazing process ongoing, which is identical with the same process ongoing of the entirety of the universe, most of which we cannot even see, fathom. We keep creating more and more powerful telescopes to try to see further into the past. But it doesn't tell us really about our future. All it does is obviate the process all the more. But you and I, we don't need to spend billions of dollars building a telescope or any instruments. We already have it. Myoho Renge Kyo. We can peer into the entire process of the universe, life, thingness, samsara, with our Buddha mind, our clear mind. Right? Try to remove the label Buddha to a chunk called mind. Replace that word, that label, with the awareness, the experience of mind. Right? It's an extra word. It's a mind of Buddha. But of Buddha is simply a reference to a type of mind. That mind is your mind. It's my mind. It's all our minds. It's the mind. You know, there's a scientific theory called the Bozeman brain that views the entire universe, what we can see, touch, feel, sense of it, and what we can't, as just a huge brain. Or multitudes of that brain, because that's what we do, right? We can't have just one. Look that up, the Bozeman brain. It's a theory of the universe. Kind of interesting. Kind of, not comfortably, but uncomfortably kind of dovetails with the mind of Buddha. The mind we all have. Are we just microcosms of the Bozeman macrocosm brain? Science is interesting. Well, I think that's going to do it for today. Whatever you celebrate this time of year, I hope you enjoy it, spend it with people that you love. And if you're alone this time of year, spend it with me. I love you. Life is amazing. Hug someone, hug a tree, hug a teddy bear. Feel the embrace of the joy of life as we near the completion of another calendar year, whatever that is. Time. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. You guys are awesome. I appreciate you beyond measure. My patrons, we all thank you. And I'm not done for the year. We've got a few more days before New Year, right? So we'll continue. What are we, Thursday today? So we'll have 2 more MulaMadhyamakaKarika discussions. And then Sunday we'll do a Gongyo and we'll shift to what? Maybe the Lankavatara. Got the Surangama sitting there too. And then the Diamond Sutra, which is perfection of wisdom. Maybe we'll get back to that a little bit. I'm not sure yet. If you have a preference, let me know in the comments. And I will see you in the next one. Be kind to yourself, to others. Mind your health. And I'll see you then. Bye for now.